if you remember yesterday we ended with this question. For a company to invest in a product, they must believe they will receive a 12% return on investment plus or minus 3%. Write an equation to find the least and the greatest ROI they will receive. Yes?
12 plus 3% and 12 minus 3%.
Yeah, so obviously that's what it is, okay? I mean, you're gonna take 12 plus 3, 12 minus 3. Unfortunately, okay, we need to write an equation, which means we have to have an equal sign and we have to have a variable and all of that. So let's go ahead and think about that. Our return on investment, could we let that equal R? Okay, and I know that the difference between R and 12 has to be what? 3. Now the interesting thing is that it's got to be plus or minus 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use absolute value signs there. So now in order to solve that, what are you going to do to both sides? How do you undo an absolute value?
And 12.
How do you undo an absolute value? Remember, how we undo an absolute value is we take both the positive or the negative. And so then now what ends up happening is I have two equations. The first equation is R minus 12 equals positive 3. The next equation is that R minus 12 equals negative 3. So now what do you need to do to both sides? Add 12. And so I end up getting R to equal what? 15. Or if I add 12 here, what do I get R to equal here? 9. So let's go back and look at our original problem. It said, write an equation to find the least and greatest ROI they believe they will receive. So they will receive either 9% is the least. What's the greatest going to be? 15%. Now, just a little tidbit. What's the difference between 9 and 15? 6. And notice in the problem, what was it? 3. Okay, 6 and 3.
Is it always that number times 2?
Ah.
Because in
that's
our
gonna be a good
homework it wasn't.
So let's go ahead and look at this. It says, write an equation involving absolute value for the graph. Now, this was the second part of your assignment. Some of you got that far. And then you're like, oh, what do I do? So,
Find the middle.
find the middle. That's the very first thing. We need to find the middle. So what's halfway in between 11 and 19? 15. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the variable x. I'm going to subtract from that the number in the middle, which is what? 15. I'm going to take the absolute value of that, and that's going to equal my distance from here to here. What's my distance from there to there? 4. Okay, now that distance is the same both ways, so it doesn't matter if you look either way. So once again, let's review that. Variable minus the middle will equal half the distance. Okay, so to solve that, to undo that, I'm going to go ahead and say x minus 15 equals plus or minus 4. So really I know that x minus 15 equals positive 4, or what else?
Negative 4.
X minus 15 equals negative 4. So let's go through and solve and make sure that these end up coming out right. So the first thing I'm going to do is add 15 to both sides here. So what do I get x to equal? 19. Oh, there we go. What am I going to do here? Add 15. And so what do I get x to equal here?
11.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so that in fact does work. So all we needed to do in that problem is the purple line, but the reason why I went through all these steps is I wanted to show you how it works. So all we need to do is the purple. So let's go ahead and look at another one of those. 17 to 27. So remember, the first thing we're going to do is find the middle. What's the middle, folks?
22.
22. Okay, so there's the middle. So remember, I'm going to start, I've got an absolute value sign. That's going to equal something. Remember, I always start inside the absolute value with what? X minus
the middle
22.
22. So x minus the middle. That's what you've always got to remember. Now that's going to equal either this distance here or this distance here. It doesn't matter because they're both the same. And what is that distance? 5. Good. So that's going to equal 5. And that is your answer. So once again, you've got your absolute value. You're going to take x minus the middle number. And that's going to equal half the distance. Okay? So file that away because that's going to be on your homework today. Now notice your middle number here could be a decimal. It could be halfway in between, and that's fine. Yep?
Isn't it always a variable minus?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so there you go. You had 14 through 42 the evens. Remember you were supposed to start on that? Hopefully you'll be done by the end of the period.
It's not probably.
There you go.
I'm gonna write notes.
All right, so once again, I'm going to go ahead and 14 through 42 the evens in section 2.5.